Hi, everyone. My name is Solomon. I'm an organizer with Small Emuni. It's really nice to be here in community together at BJ. Thank you all for choosing to come to the session. We know this was not an easy choice because there were so many amazing speakers, so many amazing sessions. Everything will be online for people to look at afterwards, source sheets, just so don't feel like you're missing out, but we're very lucky to be here. I'm going to just briefly introduce our speaker, and we have source sheets that have been passed out. If you didn't get one, you can just raise your hand. And we'll have, I don't know if it'll be more of a discussion and a shiur, but we're excited for you all to be here. Rabbi Dr. Erin Leib Smokler is Director of Spiritual Development at Yeshivat Maharat, where she teaches Hasidism and Pastoral Torah. Rabbi Dr. Smokler earned both her PhD and MA from the University of Chicago's Committee on Social Thought and her BA from Harvard. And she was ordained by Yeshivat Maharat, and we're really excited to have her here to teach with us. So without further ado.
Thank you. Do I need this? It's going to be for the live stream. I need it for the live stream. Got it. Hello. Okay, hi. Welcome, everybody. I'm honored that you chose this session. I wanted to share with you all, thank you. No, but can you shut the door? Okay, wonderful. All right, so I wanted to share with you one of my favorite pieces of Torah, basically. I teach Chassidut. I love Chassidut, and so we're going to look at a piece of Chassidut that feels very relevant, I think, to today's topic. I want to also name that when I was asked to teach, or when the deadline arrived, we were very much in the throes of the ICE activities in Minnesota, and so ideas of immigrants and strangers and who is alien and who is not is also very much was and is at the forefront of my mind as well. So when I think about otherness, and when I think about the kind of theology that might account for some of it, and I'll be more explicit in a moment about what I mean by that, I of course am referencing today's topic of sort of Israeli-Palestinian kinds of conflicts and the ways that we other each other. And yes, and I also understand that we are living in a climate, unfortunately, where there are multiple kinds of conflicts and all kinds of othering happening. Okay, so given all of that, I wanted to just take a look at who the other is, or one way that we refer. There are multiple categories, I should say, but one way that Jewish text refers to others. And that word is ger. And ger, I should just ask you, when I say ger, what's your translation? Stranger. Convert, thank you. That's when I was, one who lives somewhere, excellent. Okay, right, so lagur, right, in Hebrew is to live, right? And a ger, who mitzgorer, what does that mean? He lives, nachon? Right? So in a biblical context, right, a ger is somebody who lives maybe in the midst of, in the case of the Jewish people, lives amongst the Jewish people, but isn't necessarily of the Jewish people. One who comes to live amongst the Jewish people. Gerim is also a term used to describe Jewish people, right? Particularly in the land, we're going to come to that a second, in the land of Egypt, okay? Right, so we refer to ourselves as gerim. Moshe names his son, who is a ger, or maybe he's a ger, it's a little unclear. And the injunction to treat gerim kindly features, I believe it's 36 times in the Torah, more than anything else. We should be kind to gerim. Why? You don't necessarily need a why, but the Torah gives a why. Ki gerim hayitem, because you Jewish people, you were gerim. Okay? So a fundamental self-concept, right? The irony is, right, that the category of other, right, is fundamentally a self-understanding of the Jewish people. I don't know if that was clear enough. I'm going to say it again in a way that maybe makes more sense for me, right? So the category, or a firm category that associates the other, right, is a category by which we identify ourselves, okay? And there are all kinds of instances, both prior to the experience in Egypt and after the experience in Egypt, right, where we have self-identified as gerim. Okay, so the category of otherness is ultimately, right, a category of sameness in some very, right, real or at least literarily powerful kind of a way. Okay, so with that said, I wanted to look at one such example of the injunction to love the stranger, okay? And that is the first source, right? Ve'ahavtem et hager ki gerim hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim. You shall love the stranger, and I'm just randomly choosing the word stranger. I think it could also be a number of other things, as we've just said. Love the stranger, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt. Okay, so we referenced that already. Now we're going to look at another one. And it is a lesser known one, maybe, and I think a very interesting one. It is in the book of Vayikra, okay, source number 2. It's in Parshat Bahar. Ve'haaretz lo timacher litzmitut, ki li haaretz, ki gerim v'toshavim atem imadi. Translation, which is always interpretation, is the following, right? But the land must not be sold beyond reclaim. Okay, we're talking here about, anybody know? Shemitah, Yovel, okay? We're talking about cycles that we have, biblical cycles, where land returns to its original owner, okay? It is also not tilled, is that the right word? It's not worked. During the year of Shemitah and during the year of Yovel, the land returns to its rightful owners. Who's that? Interesting question. Ve'haaretz lo timacher litzmitut. The land must not be sold beyond reclaim. Ki li haaretz. Who's li in that sentence? God, right? God says, okay, in Vayikra, land can never be fully owned, let's say, by another person because it's mine. God's, for the land is mine. Ki gerim v'toshavim atem imadi. So the translation here is, you are but strangers resident within me. I don't know how many people here have access to Hebrew and how many don't, but I just want to ask for any thoughts. How else you might interpret ki gerim v'toshavim atem imadi?
You die at the end of your life.
Say one more sentence about that.
I'm the one who's your life is temporary. You're here on a temporary kind of condition of you're being alive and living here, but you are eventually you are with me.
Okay, beautiful, right? So maybe we can think of gerim, right, as maybe ones who are rootless in a way, right, or unlanded.
Just by definition of being temporary on the planet.
Yes, yeah. But I'm just saying, so I'm extrapolating then that one way of understanding, gareness, if you will, is not connected to land in perpetuity, at least. Any other thoughts?
Could you translate the word ger specifically?
Ger? Well, that's what we're here to do. So I can't directly. Strangers is oftentimes the way it's translated. Okay?
I just want to add to you that you're like being resident, it's not for all the time, but you are belong to me, like imadi. Like there is he compare between of the things. It's not just about the land and this relationship. You belong to me in this life forever.
Okay. Awesome. So we're going to come back to that particular interpretation. Okay? I just want to say in the opposite, or maybe another read, or the shot we might say, right, is, as is being said over here, right, you people, okay, you Jews in this case, right, your real residence is with God. Earthly land, that ain't it, okay? You really reside with me, imadi. Okay. There was another hand, I think.
Because that's ki gerim v'toshavim. So
Yeah.
gerim means strangers, but toshavim, how does that factor? Does that affect the translation?
Okay, good question, right? So ger means to live. Toshav also means to live. A ger toshav is a stranger who lives amongst the Jewish people. So that what it means here, though, gerim v'toshavim, right? It has this kind of double sense. You are strangers, and you're also not strangers in a certain way. You're rootless, but you're a little rooted, right? You're a ger, you're a stranger, but you're also toshav, but you're living. You have, it seems like you have some roots. Okay, and I want to just add one other valence here, which is ki gerim v'toshavim atem imadi. Both of you beautifully intuited, right, that there's some sense in which God is saying, you are resident with me, okay? There is another, I think, again, more basic way of reading this, right, which is, you are gerim v'toshavim relative to me. I, God, I'm eternal, you're not, right? The imadi can be both it can be seen as a term of joining, or I do think that the pshat is actually one of separation. I, God, am eternal, right? You are passing through, right? So don't have any illusions. Don't have any illusions about what belongs to you, ownership, all this kind of stuff. We are different entities.
No position. That's what it's trying to say.
Say what?
Imagine no position. No. Imagine from John Lennon.
Oh, imagine no possession. Yes.
Okay,
Sorry, I
no
just didn't hear.
position, something
Yes,
else.
yeah,
Sorry,
yes.
my Hebrew,
No.
So in a way,
Perfect.
like, oh, Hashem
Yes.
Elohim Loah, kind of like it's
Yes.
the perspective.
Exactly. Could I just make sure everybody heard that? Imagine no possession. That's what Sarah just said, right? And with the suggestion being, right, there's other statements that the land belongs to God, la shema aratzum lo'o, right? Land belongs to God, not to humans at all, right? We're doing something else here. We are stewards, maybe. We are temporary residents, gerim toshavim. Okay, but God is something other, capital O other. Yeah.
Another thought I had is gerim and toshavim are two kinds of qualities versus like categories of people. Gerim is living with, but toshavim comes from to sit down.
Right.
So there are different. These two aspects of your presence have this kind of relationship to me. So Ave is an addition to gerim.
Gerim v'toshavim, meaning some of you, say
So
no.
you as a person,
Yeah.
you are a ger and toshav. Both those are qualities of being present in a place.
Okay. Because you could be more in a place or less, more grounded, less grounded, more rooted, less rooted.
It's worth interrogating.
Yeah. No, I think that's great.
Possible, but
Yes, because a toshav is resident. To be resident somewhere does seem to have some more, I don't know, solidity, some more sense of place. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
it could be,
Could
or
be.
it has to do with moving.
Yeah.
Or moving in a place, or
Right. A ger is passing through, maybe,
yes.
and the toshav is more in one place. Yeah.
Just in the biblical context, usually when they say God said, for instance, you're here on my tolerance.
But for the
usually
grace.
about your actions. That means it's conditional. Don't forget
Yep.
that if you don't behave according to my commandments, they're not saying this here, but that's usually, you will be gone. The land will vomit you out.
Yep.
Very, right? So
Yes.
this particular land is it's a conditional
Yes.
existence. It's
Yes.
very specific.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Yes, our relationship with God gets mediated a lot through land, and that
In this,
brings us here,
yeah, no,
right?
yeah.
Do you want to say one other thing?
Yeah, I was thinking I'm not super well versed in like Torah semantics or Hebrew semantics, but I
there's a sense of, you set out and then you settle. And
Yeah.
it's like even the presence of Jewish people in the land of Israel, even in Torah times, still has the potential to be temporary. And we kind of hear that in the Torah and the prophets all the time. If you don't obey
Yeah.
God's
Right.
commands,
To your point. Exactly.
so it is temporary.
Yes.
Maybe
See-
it's less temporary than ger indicates, but it's still
Conditional.
Yeah,
condition.
absolutely. Okay, so what I want us to turn to is a text by the Degel Machane Ephraim. The Degel Machane Ephraim, I think I wrote it down, here it is, yes. Rabbi Moshe Chaim Ephraim of Sudlikov, who is the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov being the founder of, the legendary founder of Hasidism. Okay, so this is his grandson writing commentary on Parshat Bahar. On these words, Ki gerim v'toshavim atem imadi. Okay, he says, Yesh lomar bazeh b'derech remez lahavin zeh al pi sheshamati mechacham echad. Okay, he said this pasuk, this verse contains a hint, or like you could say, it contains like deep secrets, and I heard it from a very wise man. That wise man might have been his grandfather, the Baal Shem Tov, but we don't know. Okay, on these words, ger anochi ba'aretz al taster mimenu mitzvotecha. Okay, I should have prefaced this by saying that, like any good commentator, we're going to get an interweaving of different verses now, with the common word being ger. Okay, so our verse in Parshat Bahar says, Ki gerim v'toshavim atem imadi. The Degel Machane Ephraim is going to teach us something about a different verse that has the word ger. That verse is in Tehillim, and that verse is ger anochi ba'aretz al taster mimenu mitzvotecha. I am a ger in the land. I didn't translate that there, as you can see. I am a ger in the land. Do not hide your commands from me. Okay? This is presumably like King David. I'm feeling maybe a little lost. Don't hide is God. Don't hide from me. Right? I need you. Okay, on that verse, we have the following interpretation. Ki yadua min echut teva ha'olam. It is known that it is a quality of the world, or of the way of the world. Ki mi shehu ger, that should say ein, sorry. Mi shehu ger, ein lo im mi lidabek, or but im mi lidabek, v'lekarev atzmo, v'lisaper lo kol me'orotav v'chol libo. She'ein lo chaver, lo Yisrael v'lo goyim. Okay, I was asked before, what is the definition of a ger? Well, here's a definition that is being offered, which he says everybody knows. It's like teva ha'olam. One who is a ger, again, not translating on purpose, is someone who is friendless, let's say. I'll just to be literal, right? A ger is someone, ein lo imi lidabek, someone who has nobody to cling to, no one to come close to, v'lekarev atzmo, v'lisaper lo kol meratav, no one to speak to, no interlocutor, no friend. V'chol libo, she'ein lo chaver, the person has no friend. Lo Yisrael v'lo goyim, right? Not a friend in the Jewish community, not a friend outside of the Jewish community, right? A marginal figure. She'ein lo al mi l'hashrot shchinat, oh wait, sorry, I skipped a line there. V'lo goyim, ach k'shero'eh chaveiro hager, azai misaper kol echad bifnei chaveiro, kol me'orotav. Okay, so a ger, says the Degel Machane Ephraim, in the name of a mysterious, but maybe Baal Shem Tov. A ger is someone who has no friends, who sits on the margins. And he says, here's the interesting thing about gerim. When you sit on the margins and you meet another person who's sitting on the margins, lo and behold, you might find solidarity. Okay, or in his words, Kshero'eh chaveiro hager, when you recognize somebody else, again, that is a ger, maybe not in the same way that you're a ger, right? Maybe experiencing, right, exclusion for any number of different reasons, or loneliness, or isolation, right? So when you spot the lonely person across the room, he says, Azai misaper kol echad bifnei chaveiro, kol me'orotav. There is something that connects the two isolated people to one another. I used the word solidarity before. That may or may not be the best word, but the way in which maybe we could identify with whatever it is, maybe in your own life, I don't know, that makes you feel on the margins or makes you feel like you don't fit in or you don't belong, right? How wonderful is it to find the support group that is just for you, right? There's some kind of intimacy that is born of, right, shared experience, and particularly shared experience of loneliness or shared experience of marginality or shared experience of I'm the only one suffering through this right now, right? When you find that actually, no, that person also has that trouble or that challenge, right? There's something that becomes, there's a connection that is oftentimes drawn. That's what he's talking about here. This is all an analogy, he says. Okay? V'yadua HaKadosh Baruch Hu kemo ger ba'olam hazeh. Okay. Who is the ultimate marginalized one, says the Degel Machane Ephraim? None other but God, God's self. Right? In English, we often talk about capital O, other. I guess we don't always necessarily mean God, but this is what he's identifying as a profound godly feature, is God's otherness. Okay? She'ein lo al mi lashrot shrinat kevodo yitbarach. Because, he says, God has no one, no, I'll just translate this as a paraphrase, but God has no equal. Okay, so in that sense, God is totally lonely, alone. Ein od milvado, right? There's no one but God, because there's no one but God, that's God. Right? You really need a God friend, yeah? A goddess, that's your work, yes. Everyone should speak to Yael after. Correct. Okay, so let's just stay there for a moment.
Midrashim about God creating man so he had someone to talk to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, absolutely.
He was lonely.
So, okay, but let's just hover here for a moment and think about, right, so what does it mean, and I should just read the literal words here. I want to think about what does it mean to say that, maybe that sounds like a rhetorical question, but it's not. What does it mean to say that God is other? Okay, so here it says, She'ein lo al mi lashrot shrinat kvodo yitbarach, because God has no one to shine God's countenance on fully. Does that get a better translation? Go for it. Ki zeirin einun v'chulei. Okay, there's a Zoharic reference, right, that is, we, inun, we, human beings, are zeirim. We're small, right? We are small relative to God. Now that, I think, is open to interpretation. In what sense? Now, obviously, well, no, I'm not even going to say. Okay, so let's talk about the otherness of God. I know that sounds so very abstract, but okay, we can be abstract or we can try to concretize it a little bit. What does it mean to identify, what does it mean to say that God is the ultimate other, that God is a ger? In what sense? Even if it's obvious, say it. Yeah.
Well, one way that might be different is that the way he's describing ger here for us is that it's also kind of a temporary and conditional relationship. Like, you're a ger, but then if you see another ger,
Yes.
you're no longer that alone. But for God, God will never, by definition, God will always be alone.
Well, that's what you think. Okay. That's what you think. Yeah. Okay.
That's what he's saying.
Okay.
Well, there's some way because God has no equal.
Right.
It's like when the Shema, sometimes I think echad is like translated as alone as opposed to one. So there's this aloneness is like totally existential for God.
Totally existentially alone.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Well, God is a soul, and we are all soul.
Yes.
So we're mortal.
Yeah.
We exist in a space and a time, and God exists out of space and out of time.
Right. Okay. So like, there's a
Not a
total
body.
category difference, right? We are incommensurable or incommensurate. Okay. Right. God is infinite, human beings finite, right? In the Zoharic terminology, right? We are zeirim, we are small. God is whatever. Big and small is another way of maybe saying, right? Infinite, finite. Yes?
How does this concept fit with the notion that it is all God?
Okay, we're going to get there.
Okay.
We're going to get there. Right now it doesn't, right? Right now it seems that there's separateness. Yes, go ahead.
God is not human.
Thank you.
Humans are
Okay.
not God.
God is not human aren't God. Yes.
In a way, he's going to the Zoharic idea, but he's not using the Shchinte way. He could say something about Kusha Brichu and Shchinte. He could say something
Can you, explain
about
more?
like the feminine, the male side and the feminine, and they are united. And he's not using it. It's
No.
just like loneliness and loneliness again.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Sarah knows a lot, so I'm very grateful to her. Any other way that we're different?
Well,
Yeah.
I was going to say, what about the concept that God talks to people? He talked to Moshe in the Parsha last week. He talks to our forefathers. He talks to prophets. And in the Midrashic interpretations, he has angels to speak with.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you're saying God is not alone?
right.
Part of
Okay,
explanation.
right. God is actually not other.
But
God,
you could still be lonely.
yes,
So,
yes. You can still be lonely and not alone. You can be alone and not lonely. All of which is true and possible. We're just trying to sort of mine the possibilities of what it means to identify God as other. So we've already named great ones, right? God is constitutionally other incommensurate with human beings, infinite, not human.
so if we go back to the ger analogy, the ger or gera are not alone either.
Uh-huh.
They might feel lonely, but their loneliness is codified by meeting other people that they cannot connect with, perhaps.
Yeah, right.
So,
Right, so we're going to also
it's
get
a
there.
very particular kind of definition.
Yes, and you're right. What is being constructed here is this, just like I think before, the paradox of the ger as other being also a category of sameness, something that Jewish people are identified as, right? Here too, the ger category, right? The otherness category is in some sense identified by its capacity, dafka, for connection, right? You're lonely, and your loneliness is affirmed in some sense. The category of your loneliness, you might say, right, is affirmed by who it is that you could actually attach to, like where you can see your story and where you can see your loneliness or your issues like reflected right back to you. There's some way in which, right, being in relationship in some sense reifies one as a ger. So there's like a lot of paradox in this like setup here, right, about who the ger is. Yeah.
This has been very surprising to me so far, in a good way. When I when I came in, I thought the stranger would be like you were strangers in Egypt.
Yeah.
But it's something very different. And then I thought it would be something else, which is sort of like Jews are strangers in Western civilization, but also Jews who believe that gods as parallel are strangers are ger in the Jewish community, and that's what this meeting is all about, is getting people together and feeling each other's other, like the Jewish world. But now you're worrying about God. And I have to say, I have two problems with this. One is God exists outside of time and space. God exists. And we can't imagine what that means. Beyond our imagination. So therefore, that's why I jumped on it when you say God is holy. We don't know anything about God.
Okay.
So just thinking as humans would be holy, that doesn't mean God would be holy. It doesn't, there's a lot in between those two statements. And then finally, I would say the interesting thing about, I like this idea of gers recognizing each other. But I also really like the book by Heschel, Man is Not Alone. And why is man not alone? Because of man's relationship to God.
Right, but don't forget the other book, which is...
build God into whatever you want
Yeah.
God to be, because we don't know God.
Okay,
That
did you want to...
But you only get to God through a kind of process of self-estrangement.
Ooh, wait, what did you just say?
I said you only get to God through this process of self-estrangement,
wow.
or through making yourself into a sort of ger in the world.
Okay. Yeah, keep going.
I think by the notion of God being kadosh, the very notion of kadosh is separate.
Uh-huh.
Put up boundaries, and in a sense, that separation, we are struggling, moving to be closer, and perhaps God as well is moving to be closer.
Right. Right. And what does it mean to be an Am Kadosh? In search of, yeah.
I have a question, even so I think I know the answer. What's happened when God meets Elohim Acherim, other gods? Like when we meet, like the Ger meets other Ger.
gods.
You feel
Okay.
part of this like first group, like like the sociology of like his identity.
Okay.
But I think I know what we're going to say,
So-
like if we really consider the option, but it's nice question like to
Okay.
think about it.
Yeah, so that's good. We'll hold it for a second because we haven't completed, right, the image yet to see who are God's conversation partners, right? Who are the other gerim that God might meet? We want to be more explicit about that. Yes?
Relationship is not necessarily symmetrical.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we tend to humanize God, and then we dehumanize God, and we keep going back and forth and in other multiple directions. But this really speaks, I think, about our relationship to whatever we call God. Because
Okay.
that's the knowable part of it.
Yeah, okay, so you're responding to the gentleman in the back. Thank you. Okay, I want to read just a little bit more because the claim is, or the analogy, the nimshal, is a little bit more explicit here. We're coming back to the verse that we started, not that we started with, not the one in Vayikra, but coming back to the one in Tehillim, Ger anochi ba'aretz, al tastir mimenu mitzvatecha. Okay? He says, I am 4 lines up from the bottom, I think. V'hu shehitpalel David hamelech alav hashalom ger anochi ba'aretz. Okay? So he is taking the position that Tehillim, it's all written by David hamelech. Okay? He's saying this is what David is praying. This is what David is saying when David says, David the human, says, Ger anochi ba'aretz. I am a stranger in the land. Hainu ani gam ken eini rotze liot toshav ba'olam hazeh. David is saying, I am not a toshav. I am a ger. He doesn't say that word just yet, but he will, right? I too am not fully of this world. I don't fully belong, right? I in some way am totally other. Ve'ani rak keger be'olam hazeh, which I think goes back to what you said about passing through, right? David HaMelech is saying, I'm just passing through, right? I'm not here forever, right? I am ephemeral, I am finite, right? All of those kinds of things that you would think would actually be marks of separation, distinction from God. But no, says the Degel, but rather, sorry, v'lachen al taster mimenu mitzvotecha. Because I am finite, passing through, transient, all of that, because I am ger-like, says David, I turn to you, God, and say, essentially, let's be friends, right? Let's meet together in our joint experience, right? Don't hide your face from me. Al taster mimen, or don't hide your mitzvot from me. Kimo ger echad bifnei chavero shemesaper lo kol libo. Like one ger to another that meets in this shared estrangement, right? And says everything on their hearts. V'zeh yesh lamar haremez b'pasuk ki gerim v'toshavim. Okay, now, as commentaries work, now we're coming back to our original verse from Vayikra. Remember, ki li haaretz ki gerim v'toshavim atem imadi. In the Tehillim verse, David is saying to God, or the way that it's understood, is that David says to God, hey, we're friends. We're friends in our position of alienation. In the Vayikra text, God says, Ki gerim v'toshavim atem imadi. God says to people, you are my friends. You are imadi. Right, which you intuited already to begin with, right? Not ki gerim v'toshavim, you are separate and unlike me, right? But rather, you are just like me. You are just like me. Even though we don't know anything about God, sometimes we're willing to imagine. That's what we're doing.
No position.
Imagine, no, exactly.
My
No
mistake,
possession.
my mistake, probably.
Yeah.
So at first it felt like, wow, God is also there. And now I'm thinking, we're not there. Like, we're not. Because, and that's the whole thing about the Deuteronomy verse. Because we all at times are there.
Yeah.
We can all empathize with each other.
Nachon. Yeah.
Being limited, being homeless, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually, we might feel like we're there, or we might be temporarily there. See, now I'm confused. Like now I'm thinking,
Okay.
what right do we have to think we're there like God is here?
Interesting. Okay. Wait, you? Then you go ahead.
Kind of reminds me of the idea of Shavuot when we kind of view God, the relationship with God viewed as like this marriage contract, and the Torah, the commandments are the marriage contract, and that by following God's commandments, that's how we kind of develop that relationship with God, that sense of self-assertion, that not just following the rules of, not just going along with the world, but with following God's laws, even when they seem counterintuitive to how the world should be, or when they're kind of unexplainable. Like certain laws, why do we have to follow certain rituals? And that's how we understand, that's how we get closer to God, by following the mitzvot. And, but as other people point out, that's not necessarily the healthiest of relationships, because it's a marriage contract that's rooted kind of in obedience. And I think that also kind of comes back to the inherent differences between God and humans, about humans not just about humans basically being mortal, and God inherently being immortal. So you can never really have an equal relationship, and the idea that you form that relationship through commandments and through obedience kind of exemplifies. It doesn't
Okay.
necessarily have to be that way, but
I have so many things I'd like to say, but not enough time. So just two things, at least, come to mind. One, because you referenced the Sinai experience, and we're not even at Pesach yet, but we're going to just hop on over to Shavuot. And I will just say, just in the spirit of Ger Torah, it is one way of understanding, one way that our sages have understood the experience at Sinai was itself an experience of gerut in the sense of conversion. Now, we've been talking here a lot about otherness. We haven't been talking about conversion. That's purposeful, but just it's a very interesting, right? When I talk about the identity, the self-identity of Jews as gerim, and you ask why can we, how can we audaciously even say that? I will just say that another moment to situate that in is actually not just the experience of oppression in Egypt, but actually the moment of commitment. You said obedience. We're going to go with commitment. There are even halachic texts about how the first act. Whatever. We'll leave Ruth out of the picture for a moment. But a great act of collective conversion actually happened at Sinai, which I would just say is just another layer on when thinking about gerut and thinking about gerim and thinking about the position of the stranger / convert / alien / other.
About what you mean by conversion.
Becoming Jewish.
So they were
Entering into
Israelites
community.
the day before, and they were Jews the next day, roughly speaking.
Roughly speaking.
and that's why we read Ruth on Shavuot, right? Because she.
Yes, that's why I said we're going to leave Ruth. Yes, right?
That
So
is the day that they accepted the Ten Commandments?
that part of the conversion process is perhaps accepting upon oneself that. There's also ritual, I don't want to get into it, whatever. There's also a whole bunch of ritual that happened around that time that is suggested to be part of this conversion. Okay? Yeah.
I have a question. So if we're following this kind of particular train of thought, and gerim
Yes. Okay, so good question, and also not totally relevant question. No, here's why. I mean, yes, we're talking about a lot of land situations here. So actually, let's work on it together. And I also want to say that in the land of Hasidic interpretation, it's perfectly okay to focus on the second part and not necessarily have it square with the first. That being said, let's do it together. Okay, so if the point here is, right, that God is the quintessential ger, God is the quintessential other, okay? And we are actually joined to God. We are most in friendship with God, in kinship with God, in likeness with God, right? When we, I don't know, we fill in the blank here. When we are gerim, when we identify as gerim, when we lean into our own spaces of alienation, marginalization, etc., right? This seems to be the claim. We say in Breshit that we're made b'tselem Elokim, right? One of the ways that we are b'tselem Elokim is we are all gerim. How do we have the audacity to say that? Was a question, right? So I don't know if is it audacious? Is it humble? Is it an invitation actually into a way of positioning oneself relative to others in the world, as well as the ultimate other? There's a way in which, right, seeing oneself as b'tselem Elokim dafka when you feel most alienated, most alone, most not belonging. I know that's not really a word, right? There's something very profound about that. And I think that when I call this like a theology of strange, I was going to call it theology of strangeness, but that just sounded strange. But that's the idea here, right? The suggestion is that there is a way in which one might actually anchor an idea of God, right, precisely in strangeness and in otherness. And the moral consequence of doing that, I think, right, is that it very much, centers those who are others. It asks of us, yes, to see that in ourselves, right, and to find kinship with others. I know that sounds repetitive, right? But that's where we actually find kinship, and that's where we find godliness, right, in that same liminal space. Yes, Letty.
My head is buzzing. But I want to just say two things and have you react to them. First of all, it reminds me of a very rudimentary book about the No Friend Club, which you have for your children. Maybe you've read it to your children.
The No Friend Club?
The No Friend Club.
No, but I can imagine.
I think it's Shel Silverstein.
Okay.
And this young boy, had no friends at all. And his mom or dad said, well, why don't you start a No Friend Club?
Yeah.
And of course he put up a sign and put up his hand, and the No Friend Club was the majority. And so he outnumbered the rest.
Wow.
So I love that. And as gerim, in that sense, I identify. But also you haven't really dived or dove, I don't know, into love the stranger, okay?
No, we haven't. That's true.
So V'ahavtam is what I have always talked about and written about, usually mostly at Pesach, is the commandment to empathize. I don't see a commandment to empathize anywhere in the Torah. I've tried. I also see we must obey our parents. I don't see a lot of we must love God. So here again is some perhaps secret way that God is asking us to love God. Unless I'm missing it, is there a V'ahavtam Adonai?
Absolutely.
In
Absolutely.
those same terms?
Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavecha b'chol nafshecha b'chol me'odecha, right?
I'm
So
so used to saying that, I wouldn't notice.
that's fine, but I think it's very beautiful, right? So that
It's very beautiful. I mean,
no,
okay.
very beautiful what you're saying, right? Which is that there is a connection, right, between human love, right, and godly love, right? And the same terminology, the same gesture, heart gesture, whatever love means, right, is something that we are, and it's weird to command love, right? And we talk about, or some of us talk about that a lot with regard to God, like, how could you command that? What does it mean? How do you love God, right? Big questions. Also relate to humans. How do you love a human? We're all working on it, I guess, in different ways, I think, right? What is love? What does it mean? And what would it mean to command it? And what would it mean to commit to it? Right? And so you have a ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha is a commandment, so to speak, and ve'ahavta et hager is a commandment. The two things, and so is there others? I don't actually know if there's others. I'm looking at you like, I don't know.
Not biblical, but מה ששנוא עליך תעשה לחבריך, like redefine.
Yeah, but no, biblically speaking,
Yeah.
it's a very beautiful thing that you've just pointed out, right?
We and God in our no friend club
Yes, I love it.
are not equal when it comes to whom we pray to.
Yeah, no, we're not.
We pray to one of those no friends.
Right, so I want to, yeah.
Okay? So, again, the introduction of hierarchy and the introduction of praising God endlessly, God seems to have a humongous ego and needs a lot of that praise. Maybe we translate to the Tzelem Elohim in that sense that we have to do to our fellow human beings what we're asked to do to God,
Maybe.
which is to constantly uplift and praise.
Yeah.
But at a moment, there is a supreme versus inferior. And when I feel it most is in the, I believe it's Yom Kippur service, or maybe it's Rosh Hashanah as well, is when we ask God not to forget us when we're old. Now, we can't really transmogrify that ask into something we get from our no friend.
Yeah. Okay. So first, I love the No Friend Club idea. I actually was just reading a different children's book to my daughter called Otis. Anyone know about Otis? Who's a pig that doesn't like to get dirty, and that was very isolating. And Otis has no friends until Otis meets, I think, a toad that also doesn't like to get dirty, and together they can, I don't know, be clean and help one another in situations that otherwise require dirt. My daughter's 7. I was reading that. I was like, this is the Degel Machane Ephraim. She had no idea, obviously, what I was talking about. I was like, this is very deep, sweetie. You have to understand what's going on here. But I love that one even more. But here's what's important, and maybe Otis is a better example of this. No, the No Friends Club does the same, which is connecting about one thing is not a claim about sameness, right? This no friend and this no friend and me, right? We're not the same people, but we do share a certain experience, right? We share that otherness. It doesn't make us the same. So the claim here about God is not we're all God and God is all us and we've just flattened the whole thing. No, right? There are ways in which we are not like God, but here's one way in which we are, right? And ironically and interestingly and paradoxically, the way that we are like God is in our not likeness or in our no friend club. Exactly that. That being said, this is not a class about Chassidut generally, but the idea that you would want to flatten that or that there was a flatter relationship between God and human beings is something that Chasidic thought is actually quite comfortable with. So I'm saying I just said two opposite things. One is you can maintain the hierarchy and still be part of the same club, right? We can still have the same challenge and live very different lives and be different, very, very different people, right? So there, on the one hand, there is that shared, and on the one hand, there's a way in which we can share one thing and not others, and on the other hand, the idea of a theology that actually arguably equalizes and has God influencing human beings and human beings influencing God in equal measure is a very Hasidic notion that, that works with this. Yes?
I'm just like, how does this theology then make sense of Egypt? Because we're so foreign in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the moment when we forget about God and God forgets about us. So that's like some Torah, the most gereness that is described.
Right. Okay. So if I understand your question correctly, right, I think what you're saying is how does the analogy of joining with God in gereness make any sense with the experience of gereness in Mitzrayim?
Right.
And the answer is it doesn't, right? And that's okay. But also, right, that the Mitzrayim experience is seen as a kind of foundational, what's the word I'm looking for? But it's a foundational story of Jewish otherness that we can then make use of, and I don't think I mean that cynically, but that we could deploy in a way that actually can help us continue to identify as gerim, with gerim, right? What does this all have to do with today? And I want to come back to your question. This was all leading back to kili haaretz, or haaretz lo timaker l'tmitut, kili haaretz ki gerim v'toshavim atem imadi. So I'm going to ask all of you to help me reflect on this too, which is, given this analogy of two others, two no friends in the no friend club joining together, right? Where are they meeting in this story? The haaretz, right? The clubhouse of the no friend club is the land of Israel.
Is Anas here specifically the land of Israel, or are we understanding it in a wider sense?
I think the Aretz here is the land of Israel. The Aretz here is, yeah. But
because the gerim v'toshavim certainly is like kind of a bigger.
all of this can be, of course, extrapolated. But in this specific location, or this specific verse rather, yes, it is about the land of Israel. And so it is, I think, particularly powerful or instructive and maybe provocative and maybe just interesting, I don't know, to think about the headquarters of, and I love this No Friend Club, I'm going to cite it in your name now, Lenny, right? The headquarters of the No Friend Club is the land of Israel, where all the others who are marginalized, right, hang out together. And maybe, right, halavai, if only they could see a friendship, right, in their shared experience of otherness. And not only that, right, but what if they could also find holiness in that? What if we, all of us, could find God in that? That's the kind of invitation of this kind of, he had his hand up and I'm going to call you in. Go ahead.
I'm thinking about a quote from Toni Morrison where she says, the danger of sympathizing with the other is that you'll yourself feel like another.
Say it again.
The danger of sympathizing with the other or the strangers is you'll yourself feel like another.
You yourself will feel like another.
Yeah, it's like
okay, to which the Degel says, halavai.
Empathize with someone, who is on the margins to such an extent, you'll sort of take that on, and I think your point is like a lot of us feel that way in our own communities. So I really think about it as like a kind, what you were saying is a kind of moral existential stance. That act of estranging yourself is like that's how you get to God.
Yeah.
It's like, but
Yes.
there's a kind of threat in it that people resist because they feel like if I fully empathize with these people or Palestinians, then I'll somehow lose something in myself. And I think the Jewish tradition in this is saying no, actually, like that kind of estrangement is what's required.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, hooking up on your point, to leave God out of it for the moment, I want to look at the geirness as something that Jews have sought in this country, have sought to slough off. And in sloughing it off, we also sloughed off the capacity to build coalitions because we stopped being the ger, so many of us, and African Americans and East Asians, whatever, are still gerim or gerot in this land, and we are no longer in the No Friend Club. And that's when we behave really badly. And that's when we lose our capacity to unite and strength, et cetera. Solidarity, all of that's gone.
Right.
Because we are now differentiating ourselves.
Yeah.
And this is, again, the corruption of power.
She's desperate. She's desperate to get in. She's desperate to say
I
something.
just want to
Spin a bit of what you're saying.
spin away.
Jews in America often maintain this notion that we are other because of our history.
When it's useful.
Wait, but let me just finish. But other groups who are marginalized here look at us and say, you call yourself a ger? Look at your position in America. You are not a ger. So that goes
Both.
in many directions.
Yeah.
That spins perfectly.
Yes. That's perfect. Yeah. Oh wait, everybody wants to say something. Go ahead.
Well,
Love it.
just a point about Jews in America, I think also rare in the United States. Now, my grandmother has always told me, you may not feel like being Jewish makes you different until you leave New York. Never look outside the world. But to go back briefly to the point about the gareness of God being very different from the gareness of Jews in Egypt, they may not actually be that different. In the sense that God is constantly telling the Israelites to not be like the other people, not be like the Canaanites in the same land that you're going to, because they're just like the Egyptians. They don't worship God. They don't acknowledge me, even though God is supposed to be infinitely more powerful than all these people. They're people who don't recognize God's power. And I've heard interpretations of God as being really almost kind of petty in that way, that God is very desperate for attention and very desperate for people to respect God. And people don't. He gets really, really angry. And threatens the Israelites if you treat me that way. And I think I don't think that's intentionally why many Jews are so, to the point about not wanting to seem like Palestinians, not wanting to empathize with Palestinians. But it's a similar sort of thing. We don't want to give up that, we think that by being close with God or by being holy, by maintaining our individuality, we can't, it's hard to empathize with, or we may not want to empathize with other people sometimes. And, we see a lot of the oppression Olympics, in the United States.
Yes, I wanted to say I hadn't heard that term before, but I like it. I mean, I don't like it, but it's helpful. Oppression Olympics. I just want to say something, right, in light of this teaching, which is that, right, you talked about a potential danger, right, of over-identifying, let's say, or becoming alienated through this act. And I also just want to say another danger, or a related danger, is Oppression Olympics, is like, my life sucks, your life sucks, everybody's going to like have sucky lives together. Not the aim here, not the aim. And I say that a little bit in jest, but if we think about God as the ultimate ger, right, it is not about God being the most oppressed, right? That's not the nature of God's otherness, right? It's actually some kind of, right, existential, what was the word that you used before? Separate, kedusha, right? There's some kind of uniqueness, right, that is not about oppression so much as it is, again, about isolated, unique experience. That's important here. So to say that the No Friends Club meets in the land of Israel is not to say that we compete for victimization in the land of Israel. It's very important, okay? That is not the point here, right? But that we can actually tap into our respective othernesses, right? Our own existential kinds of loneliness, right? That is somehow centered, yes, in this place, right? That's a different kind of invitation. And I really want to make sure we go there. Yes, I know you really wanted to say something.
Yeah, so I think this also connects a little bit to what one of the panelists, I don't remember which one, was saying earlier about how, Jews, in many ways try to, adopt European ideals and become part of, European people and, establish a European nation in Israel.
Yes, Aaron said that.
And through doing that, we, in many ways, abandon the notion of being a ger that is so central to Judaism. And Kol vachomer, Jews, the chosen people of Hashem, are but getting toshavim with God. Then Kol vachomer, that's true for everyone in this world. It's getting to be a ger is central to humanity, and I think
Amen.
we need to remember that.
Yes. Go ahead.
So I have a conundrum. One of many. But, our mythology, sacred mythology, is really a mythology of immigration. It starts with Abraham. And we are not the inhabitants of the land at any point. We come to the land on a promise that was given to us, but other people are there.
Lama Lo.
because they live there. And we're the gerim coming there.
Okay.
I mean,
But if
that's
everybody's a ger, right? And if like Yertzalem Elohim is a ger, then
no,
Palestinians
that's our
are, we are.
consciousness. This
Yeah.
is our story. Is it their story? I don't
No.
know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
No.
Did they codify themselves that? I don't think so,
Right.
from what I've
No,
heard.
this. Yeah.
So
They came from somewhere else too. I mean, that's not
They
really.
were there.
They were there, but so were Jews there, and so were
So,
many other kinds
no,
of.
Okay.
but no, our mythology is
No, our
Abraham,
mythology,
but that's how we understand our mythology as a history. There is a gap, a known gap between the archaeology and our mythology.
Right.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
we have a mythology of immigration coming to a land that other peoples live in, right? So that's what I'm trying to sort out. Okay, it's a big one. It's a big.
Want to speak to that?
You're talking about the Canaanites and the other people that were living there.
If
Yeah.
we're talking about the archaeology, the culture, our culture emerged is an evolution of Canaanite culture.
Right. Okay.
If we're talking about our mythology,
We came from somewhere else.
we always come from somewhere else. A land promised to us that other people live in.
Seven different nations.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up because our mythology is a huge fuel in how we approach the land. Hugely. Much more than the
Yeah.
archaeology and the history.
100%. Say one more sentence though, and you find that to be pushing against the grain of this interpretation? Is that what you're?
It's just that I think that when we say them and us are gerim, we are applying our point of view.
For sure. Yes.
And by that, we're not seeing them. Because we're not
I hear that.
asking them how they
I hear that as
From any Palestinian I spoke to, they don't see themselves as
All
gerim.
right. Okay. Now I see you. Right.
Okay.
Hurts. But
I'm not a religious person. I'm a historian, so I don't worry about, I don't know if God exists, so I don't worry about how God feels. When I think about this term, it's very useful, I think. I have two examples that pop to mind immediately. Brooks Spinoza lived at a time when you didn't belong to your nation state, you belonged to your religious cultural community. So he was expelled from and excommunicated from the Amsterdam religious community. And he had nowhere to go at all. He was completely alone in the world. Because most people converted if they didn't want to be limited by their Judaism. But he didn't convert. So he was all alone in the world. He was there everywhere he went. And he's the original non-Jewish Jew as historical being. And he stuck with it without, I mean, he did have support. And I guess you could say those were members of his No Friends Club. But it was hard work to do. And it's a very important Jewish tradition, I think. And I think the people I think about that today are, I read this, maybe it was an op-ed, might have been at the Times, I'm not sure. But there was this guy, he was a theater director in Israel. And he refused to serve in Gaza. And no one in his family would ever speak to him. But then when he would go to Europe, no one would speak to him either. For the opposite reason.
He was Israeli.
Because he was Israeli and therefore guilty of genocide. So I think for me, the more powerful interpretation of being a ger, I mean, historically it's related to the way Jews have been seen as outside respectable society. But as Letty was saying, that's not the case today. I mean, maybe it's more in New York than it is anywhere else, but Jews are all right, by and large. And it's the oppression of the
the oppression Olympics. It's something else. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sort of fixating on the gareness of God, and actually, God is a gare among other religious groups. The successionist ideology that Christians outdid us, and then the Muslims outdid the Christians. Our God has kind of been defamed or denigrated through Christian fundamentalism, which views our God literally as a different God. They may say it's the same God, but it was the basis of Christianity and of the original blood libel that we killed Christ. That somehow or other our God killed their God, or 1/3 of their God, right?
Okay.
So I mean, our God isn't is a gare, but more than a gare is despised like some gares are in other faiths. So maybe that's yet another reason for identifying, if we think of it in the context of just the historicity of whatever it is, of religions.
Yeah.
And how they
Jesus was also despised and also considered the
and
other.
also a Jew.
Yes, no, and that's also acknowledged within Christianity.
I want to say something too. Even in our text, our God comes from the south, right? From Satan, from
In
Seir.
those verses.
our God comes from the south of the land. Is a foreigner.
From
Comes from Seir, come from Edom,
oh yeah.
right?
Nice. 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 So all of this is.
To Camuel, we adopted from the Midianites.
And why would all these evangelicals be eager for us all to move to Israel for the end times?
Different.
And
It's a different conversation. It's a different.
then they'll recognize that our God is their God. They kill us if we don't.
Oh, okay. Okay, I don't want to end on that. So, but we do have. Yes, you've got a friend, exactly. Let's end. We have to end. I think that maybe it was you. Somebody had said at the outset that part of what I hope we're doing today as a collective group is meeting in the No Friends Club here, right? To see that places that we might feel alienated, we might actually be able to build community and partnership in and through shared otherness. And what I want you to, I hope, take away from here is, right, I began by also sort of placing this in the context of other strangers that we, or other experiences of othering that are very current in our country. And so that story of othering and the story of othering in Israel are both opportunities actually to reflect on our own otherness, the divinity of otherness itself, right, and the holy work of being able to recognize the other across the room. So with that, we shall close. Thank you, everybody, so much for being such willing partners.
Divinity of otherness.